Today, we're going to cut through all the noise, all those complicated life hacks, and get right to the simple truth about productivity. And hey, spoiler alert, it's a lot easier than you probably think. You ever look at someone and just think, wow, they're a machine? You know the type. The person who gets more done before their morning coffee than you do all week. And you just have to wonder, how on earth do they do it? Do they have some secret stash of willpower the rest of us just don't? Well, here's the thing. The answer is no. Their secret isn't about having some superhuman level of discipline or motivation. It's actually about understanding and then using a very simple, very powerful cycle that really anyone can tap into. All right, let's dive right in. And to kick things off, we need to bust the biggest myth out there about what it really takes to get things done. To do that, let's take a look at a pretty extreme example: students in South Korea. I mean, some of them literally study for more hours than the average person is even awake. It's so easy to just assume they're, just built different. But when you actually look closer, the reality is surprisingly, well, normal. Turns out a lot of them are just dreaming of becoming esports pros. Plenty of them skip showering just to save a little time, and their number one productivity hack? Chugging an iced Americano between subjects. Not exactly the secret sauce you were expecting, right? It's not about magic. It's all about having a system. So if it's not some hidden secret, then what is it? Well, it all comes down to understanding this one fundamental loop: the motivation work cycle. This, right here, is the core engine of all productivity. It starts when you feel just a little spark of motivation. That spark pushes you to do a little bit of work, and then when you finish that work, you get that feeling of accomplishment. That good feeling, that's what fuels more motivation, and around it goes. It's a powerful, self-perpetuating cycle. And this is the part you really gotta get. It's a self-reinforcing loop. So many of us think we need to wait for motivation to show up before we can work, but this cycle shows us that doing the work is actually what creates more motivation. The action itself generates its own fuel. And this perfectly explains something we have all felt: the deadline effect. You've had 3 weeks to write that essay, right? And nothing. Crickets. But then, in the final 30 minutes before it's due, you suddenly become a literary genius. Why? Because that deadline creates this massive surge of motivation, which makes this cycle spin at an incredible speed. This quote really just gets to the heart of it all. When you feel completely flat, totally uninspired, don't just sit around and wait for motivation to strike. You have to create it. Get something, anything done, and just watch the motivation follow. Okay, so the theory makes sense, but how do we actually get the wheel turning, especially on those days when we just feel totally stuck in neutral? One of the most effective tools in your toolbox is a really detailed to-do list. Why? Because a good to-do list is specifically designed to give you those little feel-good hits of accomplishment as often as possible. And that's the fuel for the whole cycle. Come on, we've all written a list like this. A big, vague, monster task like do homework. It's intimidating, you have no idea where to even start, and you only get that "I did it" feeling hours later, if you even get there. It's a total cycle killer. Now, this is a little better. You break it down by subject. Now you've got 3 separate tasks. You can tackle one, cross it off, and get a little jolt of motivation before you move on to the next. Okay, we're getting warmer. But this is where the magic really happens. A truly great list breaks tasks into tiny, concrete actions. Complete math problems 1 through 5. Each little item you check off gives your brain a quick shot of that feel-good chemical, which then motivates you to do the next tiny task. You're basically engineering a whole series of small wins to keep that cycle spinning. So when you're staring at your list, you've really got 2 basic ways you can play this. You can either try to manufacture some motivation up front, or you can just bypass that step completely and jump right into the work. So if you do decide to start with motivation, here are a few tricks that actually work. Remind yourself why you're even doing this in the first place. Focus on the one part of the task you might actually enjoy, or turn it into a game. Challenge yourself against the clock. You can also build it into a daily routine so it becomes as automatic as brushing your teeth. But honestly, maybe the most powerful strategy of all is to just start with the work. It's called the 1-minute rule. The idea is to make the barrier to getting started so ridiculously low that you just can't say no. Just do 1 minute of work. Anyone can do 1 minute of anything, right? But what you'll find is that after that 1 minute, the cycle has already started, and suddenly you have enough motivation to do the next minute and then the next. Okay, you've started the cycle, you're in the groove, things are moving. Fantastic. But how do you keep that momentum going when you inevitably hit a roadblock? Let's do some troubleshooting. These are what I like to call the four horsemen of the productivity apocalypse: tiredness, boredom, anxiety, and distractions. Now look, tiredness is a physical signal. If you're tired, the best solution is usually a real break or some actual rest. But for those other three, the mental roadblocks, we've got some strategies to fight back. Feeling bored, like everything's gone stale? The solution can be surprisingly simple. Change your environment. Go work from a coffee shop or the library, or even just move to a different room in your house. I'm serious. Sometimes just turning your desk to face a different wall is enough to hit the reset button on your brain and get that cycle moving again. And when anxiety hits, your mind can start racing and you feel paralyzed. The best antidote is to just pause and challenge that feeling with a little bit of logic. Just walk yourself through these questions. First, why am I actually anxious? Just name it. Second, is this worry I'm having reasonable, or am I blowing it out of proportion? Third, in the grand scheme of things, will this even matter in a year or a month? And finally, the most important one, what is the one thing I can control right now? Focusing on that single action pulls you out of the spiral and puts you back in the driver's seat. And finally, the biggest cycle killer of our time: distractions. The solution here isn't complicated. It just requires a tiny bit of discipline. Take your phone, put it on silent, and then physically put it in another room, out of sight, out of mind. That one simple act removes the single greatest obstacle to getting sustained work done. It's a game changer. So let's make this real. Forget about your big plans for tomorrow. The simple truth is that productivity starts right now with one small action. So the question I'll leave you with is this: what is the one tiny thing you can do in the next 60 seconds to get your cycle started